All right, we are starting Unit 10, which is our probability unit. And our learning target for today this is simple events, which is 9-1 from our textbook. And our learning target is I can find the probability of a simple event. All right, so we have some vocab that we need to know for this lesson. The first word is outcome. An outcome is any one of the possible results of an action. So let's say we're flipping a coin. The outcomes are the possible results. So it could be heads or it could be tails. Those are our outcomes. Simple event. This is one outcome or a collection of outcomes. Okay. Probability, that's the chance of that event happening. So if you think about rolling a dice, the probability that you're going to roll a 1, okay, is a 1 out of 6. Okay, and then we also have complementary event. Okay, so for a complementary event, so think about if we were thinking of who would go first in playing a game of horse. Okay, so let's say there's either our player Simon will go first or they will not go first. This is what complementary events are. And so the complementary events add up to 1. So it's either that it will happen or it will not happen. Okay? If we look at this is talking about probability. If all outcomes are equally likely, the probability of a simple event is a ratio that compares the number of favorable outcomes to the number of possible outcomes. Okay? So the probability of event, favorable outcomes, so that's what we're trying to find. So like I said, rolling a dice, the favorable outcome we're looking for is how many times we'll roll a 1. Our denominator is the possible outcomes. Well, on a dice, there's 6 numbers, so there's 6 possible outcomes. Okay? And we can look on this scale to kind of gauge how likely something is to happen. So for example, rolling a 1 out of 6, that's going to be closer to the unlikely side on our scale here. So if it has a possibility, or if it gets a 0, it's impossible. It's not going to happen. Where if it's 100%, then it's for sure going to happen. So you can kind of look on there to see how likely it is for your event to happen. So our question here, what is the probability of rolling an even number on a number cube marked with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 on its faces? Well, first we have to figure out the number of favorable outcomes. That's what we're looking for. So we're looking for hold on, my pen is not working. An even number out of the total numbers. Okay, so there's 2, 4, and 6. That's 3 even numbers. Total numbers, there's 6 of them, 3 out of 6. And now let's simplify that to 1/2. So the likelihood of getting an even number is 50%. Okay, some more examples. So we're using that same cube, numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, to find each probability. And we're going to write it as a fraction in simplest form. So again, our cube is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So the probability of an odd number, so the favorable outcomes, odd numbers, there's 1, 2, 3 of them. Out of the total outcomes, which is 6, in simplest form, 1/2. Okay. Next one, the way that we read this, that P means probability, and then we say probability of what's ever in the parentheses. So the probability of rolling a 5 or a 6. Well, that's only 2 options out of 6 possible, which simplifies to 1/3. Okay, the probability of a prime number, so we have to go through and decide our number's prime. That means only divisible by 1 in itself. Okay. All right, so our prime numbers, let's go through. 1. 1 is not a prime number because it's neither prime nor composite. 2 is prime. 3 is prime. 4 is not. 5 is, and 6 is not. So favorable outcomes, that's prime numbers, is 3 out of total, which is 6, which is 1/2. All right, so let's look at this example. So Simon and her friends, or 3 friends, were deciding how to pick the song they will sing for their school's talent show. They decide to roll a number cube. The person with the lowest number chooses the song. If her friends rolled a 6, 5, and 2, what is the probability that Simon will get to choose the song? Okay, so the person with the lowest number. So let's think all of the possibilities of a number cube. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So one of our friends rolled a 6. Next friend rolled a 5, and the next friend rolled a 2. So in order for Simon to be able to pick the song, she needs to get a number lower than those. And the only number that is lower is 1. So she can get one number out of 6 total. Okay. And that's the probability that Simone will get to choose the song. And that's approximately, if we go numerator divide by denominator, it's approximately 17%. So she has a 17% chance of being able to pick the song for their talent show. All right, next example here. The table shows the number of brass instrument players in the New York Philharmonic. Suppose one brass instrument player is randomly selected to be a featured performer. Find the probability of each event. So we have a few examples here. Write as a fraction in simplest form. So we look over at the chart here, and they tell us each of the different brass players and how many there are of each type. So let's look. Probability of a trumpet, of it being a trumpet that's picked. So we have 3 trumpet players. We have to figure out how many total players there are in the band, in the orchestra, Philharmonic. So we add up each of the players. We have 6, 4, 3, and 1. So if we add all of those together, there's 14 total players. Okay, so that's the total possible number of outcomes. So 3 out of 14. And we want to write that in simplest form, which it already is. Okay, next one, E. The probability of it being a brass player. Well, all of these are brass players. So there's 14 possible people that they could pick from out of 14, which is just 1. So it is a given that they will pick a brass player. Next one, the probability of it being a flute player. Well, if we look through, there are no flute players, and there's 14 total, so the probability of it being a flute player is 0. It is not possible to pick a flute player to be the featured performer. Now the next one, the probability of a horn or tuba player. So we need to add the horn players, which are 6, and there's 1 tuba player, okay, out of the total possible. So 6 plus 1 is 7 out of 14. Simplest form is 1/2. All right, so here we are looking at complementary events. Let's just take a quick look at this study tip here. Complement of an event. So the probability that event A will not occur is noted as probability of not A. Okay, so that would be like if we were rolling a dice, we could say the probability of not rolling a 2. Okay, since probability of A plus probability of not A equals 1, the probability of not A equals 1 minus the probability of A. Okay, so the probability of not A is read as the probability of the complement of A. So that was a lot of information. Let's see what that means. Okay, so Ramon's teacher uses a spinner similar to the one shown at the right to determine the order in which each group will make their presentation. Use the spinner to find each probability. Write as a fraction in simplest form. Okay? So our first example here is the probability that it is not group 4. Okay? So what we can do is take take 1, subtract off the probability of group 4, and that will tell us the probability of not group 4. Okay? So let's see. The probability that they would pick not 4 is 1 out of 6. So if we take 1 minus, the probability of group 4 is 1 out of 6. Do our subtraction. That's 5, 6. So the probability of not group 4 equals 5, 6. All right, so now we'll follow those same steps for finding the probability of not group 1 or group 3. So we would take 1 minus the probability of group 1 or group 3. So the probability of picking 1 or 3 is 2 out of 6. So 1, which is equivalent to 6 out of 6, minus 2/6 would be 4/6, which is equal to 2/3. So the probability of picking not groups 1 or 3 is 2/3. All right, so that is the lesson for 9-1 on simple events, looking at probability. If you are still confused, go back and rewatch any part of the video you're still stuck on. Otherwise, look in the online textbook and the tutor videos that are on there. Otherwise, go and take your 9-1 NICU at this time.